The M2A2 is a light tank built by the United States. It was originally designed at the Rock Island Arsenal. Started production in 1935. It was a pretty pathetic design because it originally only had two machine guns mounted in two separate turrets. During the Spanish Civil War, they realized that machine guns were kind of useless. This was a four-man. This tank had a four-man crew in it originally. Eventually, it would be upgraded to a 37 millimeter M5 gun, but unfortunately, in the game, we have the two separate turrets, which means that you can have a co-gunner with you, so people can get points. In this episode, we'll show you driving around using the tank. We'll also show you riding as a co-gunner to get extra team points. Okay, here we go. Now we're already into the tank. The one thing with this tank, it's really not good for tank-on-tank action. It's designed more as an anti-infantry weapon. The tank moves at a good clip. It's pretty fast, but you have not as much control as I would have liked to have seen. It's hard to stop, so if you're driving around and you come across some rocks or something, you better take your finger off the W button ahead of time, because this thing will coast and you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. Now, the armor isn't all that good on it. You'll have to keep an eye on the lower left-hand side. You can see that it doesn't take much to take a couple of hits, and your points will start going down. But it does fairly well against infantry if you can just get yourself set up properly. As you'll see here, we managed to take out a couple of these guys who just don't seem to realize we're here. But at the same time, we're being shot at by somebody else. But because of our field of view, we don't see where he was coming from. Now, he did get us with a Panzerfaust, which is a very popular weapon that the infantry's been using. Now, in this one, I've spawned in, by holding down the E key, I've spawned in as the passenger gunner, if you were the co-gunner. And the downside is, it's actually the hull gun, I guess, or it's got a very limited field of view. I can go so many degrees to the left or the right, which really counts on the tanker keeping in mind that I'm here for his support. So he either has to remember to set his tank up so that I can cover his six if he wants to, if he thinks someone's coming up behind him, or he needs to set it up so that I can support him while he's shooting at other targets. What normally happens, though, when you spawn into somebody else's tank, they really don't take that into account, so they're losing out on points. Okay, we're back into our own tank this time. It's a good tank, I guess, to build up your points. And what'll happen over time, you're going to get enough points that you'll be able to release a tank with a better gun and a little more armor and stuff like that. At the moment, just driving around with machine guns, it's almost like driving around in the Jeep and using that machine gun, except you do have some protection around you. You notice we just ran into a log. That's because we couldn't stop. There are no brakes on this thing. But like I say, it's great for taking care of infantry if you're fast enough and if you keep your eye on things. The problem is that the scope for aiming the gun limits your field of view even more. So there could be people to the left and to the right of you, and you can't see them. Again, it would be really nice if you had other people playing with you who could talk to you and let you know that there were people coming up behind you. Someone watching your six would be good. I do enjoy shooting infantry with this, but and you can take out like motorcycles, soft vehicles, if you upgrade to armor-piercing bullets. That's always a good idea too. Plus, I use it for carrying kits, you know, like the first aid kit, or maybe even an anti-tank kit. So if your infantry is protecting you, they can get their own Panzerfaust from it. But it's been interesting. I prefer the other tank better. That's why I did the other video first, because I enjoyed that one a lot more than this tank. Now I've sped this one up just so that we're not just sitting there watching us drive around. One of the things to keep in mind is that tanks are expensive, and your best bet is to try to keep them safe as much as you can, because it's going to cost you in maintenance. You want to be in the battle for as long as possible, but you also want to score points. And every time you fire the gun, of course, every bullet's going to cost you something. It's a small amount, but it meant when you're firing hundreds and hundreds of rounds, it can add up. And having your tank blow up on you costs you wear and tear on the tank. So it's always a good idea to try to find a spot that you can lay down some covering fire and but at the same time protect yourself from being killed. But to try to keep your costs low, it's a good idea to ride as a secondary gunner, like we were doing just then, because you don't get charged anything for doing that, yet you still get points and you still get your money for being in combat, and then you can use that to upgrade your whole thing. So we're back into our tank now, and again we're just going to go and attack this the sawmill, and we'll end up getting blown up eventually, because we're so busy concentrating on the infantry that we don't see people to our left and right. And you really have to keep your eye open for who's doing the shooting. Now every time you get hit, there's a little red arrow, and it's showing you approximately where you're getting shot from. So they could be up on the roof, they could be behind the wall to your right, but you're busy trying to figure it out, and you end up getting blown up. Now this time we got blown up actually with an anti-tank rifle, which is quite common for a tank with such thin armor. We don't have the armor capability that the heavy tanks have. The heavy tanks, you can shoot away at them for a while. We're riding as the second gunner in this M2A2, and now because we're in the other turret, we can swing our turret around, and which would give us about 180-degree ability, which if you work it out right and you set the tank up just right, then you can give yourself some half-decent protection with the two of you being in the tank. The problem is generally that the tank driver will actually set it up just for himself and not take into account the secondary driver, which is actually detrimental to him. It's in his best interest to realize that he could either get two sets of guns being laid on the target, or that he could have his backside protected. So it's all based on experience. We don't do well against other tanks. Try to stay away from them, and good luck. Hopefully this was of some help to you, and if you like it, please like and subscribe. See you next time.